The Financial Action Task Force, that is FATF, started in Paris on Sunday. 6-day-long meeting of the representatives from 39 member nations and organizations like IMF, World Bank and United Nations will focus on the global action to follow the money that funds crime and terrorism across the world. One of the important aspects of the agenda is to decide whether Pakistan stays in the grey list in which it was placed by the FATF in June 2018. In its last meeting in October 2019, the FATF had noted that Pakistan has addressed only 5 out of 27 action points given to it to control funding to terror groups such as Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Hizbul Mujahideen. In yet another U-turn on its promise to take action against terror outfits, Pakistan is said to have informed the FATF that Jaish-e-Mohammed founder Masood Azhar and his family are now missing. For more on this, we are joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio today. Let me first introduce the guests to you, beginning with Dr. T.C.A. Rakwan, former investor. We also have with us Mr. K.V. Prasad, Senior Associate Editor from The Tribune, and retired Major General Ashwini Kumar Sivach, our defense expert here. So let's begin, Dr. Raghavan, and let's try and understand, because this FATF saga with Pakistan has been going on for quite some time, starting from 2018 when it was put in grey list. It was given some task to complete almost more than 24, and in October 2019 it was said that they've not achieved much. So this is sort of a D week for Pakistan as far as FATF is concerned.
Well, those in the FATF will see whatever has been done with Pakistan as part of a process, and that Pakistan has taken some action, other works remain in progress. For Pakistan itself, the FATF is another burden which they have to bear in trying to justify their own regulatory measures when it comes to dealing with terrorism. But the point is that the larger geopolitical environment around this process has changed. And that has changed principally because of events relating to Afghanistan. And Pakistan now has acquired a new relevance because of US postures on Afghanistan changing and evolving, and US being keen to withdraw from Afghanistan. Because of that, because of its strong relationship with China, and because of various other changes in Pakistan's own relations with other countries, the overall geopolitical environment for this FATF meeting is now different.
Okay.
So certainly, while we should keep the pressure up on Pakistan, but in the end, we have to go back to fundamentals that other countries will not see Pakistan through our perspective. They will see it from the point of view of their own interests. And we have to deal with Pakistan on our own, as we have been doing.
Okay. But there are a lot of specifics involved as well. In addition to that also, I'll come back to you on that. But Mr. Prasad, your view on what Mr. Raghavan is pointing out, that geopolitical scenario has changed slightly from the last few meetings in which Pakistan was bearing the brunt as far as the other member nations are concerned, and was in the grey list as well. But it has not done much on the promises which were made, or the action points which were given to it.
Well, according to the latest report, some 14 of the 27 is what they are saying, the parameters on which they have worked. What degree, when the status reports comes up for discussion, probably on Friday, I think it's listed.
Yeah.
It will kind of, then you can get the details as to what has happened. What Ambassador Raghavan says is very relevant to this whole thing, because we are hearing reports very soon there might be a deal with Taliban that's going to be announced, and one wouldn't be surprised if it happens before President Trump's scheduled visit to India. And that's whole thing is being looked at from that prism too, and wherein the principal the role that Pakistan is likely to play in the absence of. So I think all these are factors which naturally have to be borne in mind. Irrespective of that, their whole task force agenda will remain focused on not just Pakistan. Of course, there's a huge area in which they're looking at it. And just before a little while ago, I think there was a report suggesting that one of the principal banks of Pakistan has had some kind of in the UAE it was working, and where they have some exposure to politically exposed persons. So all these are issues that will come up. But I'm sure the people who are tasked to look at this, financial regulators, will look at it from their perspective, while the larger geopolitical comes when the things take up for the bigger fora.
Okay, and then a final decision has to be arrived at. Jan Sivach, your views on the entire process, and According to your, point of view, where does Pakistan stand now? Will it be able to get itself off from the clutches of the FATF, that is away from the grey list, or it might still stay there, but escape being moved to blacklist?
Vishal, first of all, we must understand one thing, that as far as the Pakistan track record is concerned, is very poor. It has only implemented 5 out of 27 points. Now partially up till 14 points, but it has failed to implement the restriction and the action plan which was given by Financial Action Task Force, especially on money laundering and terrorist funding. As you are aware of it, that whether it is a Lashkar-e-Toba, Jamaat-ul-Dawa, and it's also a front organization, Fly Insaniyat Foundation, then Jaish-e-Mohammed, Haqqani Group, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, they are all collecting funds, especially from POK and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So there is nothing much Pakistan has done about it. Neither it has put restriction on their banking system, which is very, very prone to money laundering. So Pakistan, as far as the Merit case is concerned, deserve to be downgraded to a blacklist. But irony of the thing is that it is difficult to downgrade in blacklist because the political issue takes on. For downgrading blacklist, you need support of the members. And if Pakistan has a support of 3 members, he can avoid getting downgraded into blacklist. As we are all aware of it, Malaysia, Turkey and China are supporting Pakistan. So the chances of it downgraded to blacklist are almost 0. Now question comes whether it will continue remaining grey list or can it come out of even from grey list.
Okay.
To that extent, it looks like that it cannot come out because it needs another 14 to 15 countries support to come out of grey list. But it doesn't seem it will happen because the track record is very poor. They have not done much on the ground, and especially only thing which they are trying to have is that the relationship which they are now with US, in terms of that they are the mediator, ensuring some sort of package is signed between Taliban and US, for which even US president is given them a shabas when you can say Hafiz Saeed was convicted first time by the lower court and given in 2 cases 5.5 years of punishment. So to that extent, they are now slightly having a sympathy of America, but on ground they have not done much. Now we are saying what has happened to the operational commander of LAT, Zikar-ul-Rahman Lakhvi. He is moving freely. You have done nothing to him. What happened to Masood Azhar? He is a mastermind of parliament attack. You have done nothing on that thing. So as far as India is concerned, all those concerns are valid. One is that you have not done anything. Now you are saying Masood Azhar is missing from Pakistan. It is laughable. And second thing is, whatever action they have taken against Hafiz Saeed, we have a strong reason to believe that once the pressure of Financial Action Task Force is no more there, he will challenge in higher court and he possibly will get some sort of redress. So therefore, it looks like that it is totally orchestrated by Pakistan, and Pakistan to some extent may avoid getting downgraded to a blacklist, but may not come out totally out of grey list.
Of the grey list, but that'll depend upon the Friday when the plenary takes up that particular issue. But Ambassador Raghavan, taking into account what General Sivaj is pointing out, and the very fact of it as well, that Pakistan is known to have not done very much. In fact, not even sufficient enough to call it an proper action to be taken as far as terror funding is concerned. And you raised your concern on the geopolitical situation which is prevailing right now. So does a question arise here that does the geopolitical situations undercut these efforts of taking on the terror funding, which was the sole task for which FATF was put in place?
Well, yes, FATF was set up to put strengthen regulatory measures when it comes to terrorist financing, but obviously FATF members are guided by the political and geopolitical consideration of their hosts, of their governments. The point is that while given the enormity of the terrorist attacks we have been inflicted with because of Pakistan, while we have a certain perspective on this, other countries will not necessarily share that perspective. And certainly, while they would all agree that Pakistan has had a very poor record when it comes to association with terrorists, they would tend to see, or some of them would tend to see, steps which Pakistan is taking now as being important steps, and that Pakistan should be encouraged further on the same lines. As I said, nobody sees things from one point of view alone. We see it from the point of view of our interests. Other countries will see it from the point of view of their interests. So there is a view that sentencing of Hafiz Saeed, for instance, was an important step, because this is the first time that an important terrorist leader has been actually convicted by a court, that sufficient evidence was presented. That evidence was always there with their agencies, but they never presented it.
But as Jin Shivas is pointing out, that if Pakistan manages to get off the FATF list, then Hafiz Saeed might get a reprieve.
I think that factor is certainly there, and it has happened before. This is not the first time that he has faced this kind of legal scrutiny. But as I said, since the overall environment has changed, and many countries, or quite a few countries, are of the view that sufficient pressure has been put on Pakistan, and it would be counterproductive to continue with that pressure, and we should try other means of inducing change in Pakistan, it appears to me unlikely that we will see a movement from the grey to the blacklist.
Okay, but then, the Pakistan government also coming up with these kind of statements or excuses, which we are told that it's been informed the FATF that Masood Azhar, as far as and his family is concerned, they've gone missing from the country. Somebody who's known to move freely in Pakistan. That again raises questions. Mr. Prasad, from your point of view, it's geopolitics versus the strong action which needs to be taken. Ultimately, the people, the leaders out there, or the representatives will have to choose.
The question is, when you're sitting on a task force committee meets, it's not just one, it's a number of countries who are there, representatives of various organizations, like even from India, you have maybe the Enforcement Directorate, then other financial regulators or arms, the investigative and enforcement arms which will go are already there. So is Interpol, so is Europol, and many other such organizations. They would take a view, certainly, based on what is presented to them in the report. Once, you see, the point is, if you keep the pressure on, moving to a blacklist would require a lot more things. And as Ambassador Argun also pointed out, and the question is, Pakistan will obviously try and say that we have done so much. How much is it? Does that satisfy those people who are actually scrutinizing those things? That is the key question.
Okay.
Second is the political support that Pakistan, obviously Turkey has made it public, that is going to support. I mean, it's not secret. You had Prime Minister Erdogan in Islamabad, he made it in as many words. Malaysia, we've been seeing a different kind of echoing coming from their side. So these two are very well known. China, of course, is known as an all-weather friend of Pakistan. But obviously, all this will be on the table. Eventually, it's the political leadership's final call. I mean, so to keep them on the grey list would probably be the biggest thing, because you only have two countries in the blacklist now, Iran and North Korea. So, and Pakistan's woes will increase tremendously if they go to the blacklist. So Pakistan's effort would be try and stay where they are and try and convince people that, look, we have done so much. Whether they get convinced or not is obviously on Friday you will get to know.
Okay, so the geopolitical equations might, save Pakistan as far as going to the blacklist is concerned. But General Sivach, if you look at what is it that India needs to do from here onwards, because from the Indian perspective, and as Ambassador Ragun is pointing out, that it is not necessary that everybody sees this entire situation from our perspective, but we have suffered at the hands of those terrorists who've been funded by Pakistan. So from our perspective, from India's perspective, what is it that needs to be done from here onwards, irrespective of the fact whether Pakistan moves to the blacklist or doesn't move?
Vishal, the point is that India diplomatic pressure has made a lot of tremendous difference. Indians diplomatically has conveyed to the world over that if you be soft with Pakistan, then you will find terrorism spreading throughout the world. So to some extent, people have understood that. But I tend to agree that this issue, as far as our own fight against terrorism is concerned, basically against Lashkar-e-Toba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Jamaat-e-Ulama and Fly Insaniyat Foundation collecting number of funds, especially from POK, is our own fight, which we have to do ourselves. But our aim is expose Pakistan internationally as much as possible. Now, Masood Azhar is going missing. We must highlight it as to how can such a big terrorist who was given a security by Pakistan establishment is missing from Pakistan. It's laughable. So one issue is that we have to now diplomatically expose, because Pakistan, of course, is unlikely to be downgraded to blacklist because it has got 3 countries support: Turkey, Malaysia and China. So, and also the Financial Action Task Force, today the President Syngman Lee is also a Chinese. So therefore that point is seen. But the fact they remain in a grey list is a victory by itself.
Okay.
Because that itself, because you see the condition of Pakistan today. Pakistan has a debt of $94 billion. It has to pay $4 billion as an interest only for the loan and debt which it has taken. It has got only foreign reserve of just more than $10 billion, cannot look after 2 months of import. Its foreign reserve is less than Afghanistan. Its inflation rate is in double figure. It does not have any export, hardly any export, and no investment is coming. So Pakistan, if you keep them also in the grey list, it will hurt them. Because what is happening is IMF, World Bank, and Asia Development Bank and European Union will think 10 times to give him further loan.
Okay.
There is only $6 billion which is given by IMF. That also they are rethinking it. So my point is, expose Pakistan diplomatically, internationally, show the true color of Pakistan, especially in case of Masood Azhar, and also bring out, as far as Hafiz Saeed is concerned, what action they are taken is irreversible, because after some time when the limelight goes away from Pakistan, then what will happen to Hafiz Saeed? He will get some sort of redress from the higher court. And another is Jakur Rahman Lakwi. He is roaming freely. He is the operational commander who was involved basically in your Mumbai attack of 2008.
Okay.
So, but my point is, put pressure, keep at least Pakistan on grey list.
Okay.
That itself will be a victory.
Okay, Ambassador Raghavan, would you agree to this fact here? Because the way out for India from here onwards, and we've done well as far as diplomatically, cornering Pakistan on the international fora is concerned. But we need to keep that pressure out there. Keep our foot on the pressure points there as far as Pakistan is concerned. Keep exposing that country and its acts in funding the terror activities.
Well, the first lesson of diplomacy is that policy can never be static. It has to be dynamic. And it also always needs to keep changing depending on the environment in which it is contextualized. So yes, we have followed a policy of trying to isolate Pakistan, put diplomatic and other pressures. But as I said, we cannot be stuck on a static policy, and the government has all the information, it has all the inputs, it takes into account public opinion in the country itself, and based on all those factors it takes a decision on which particular policy to continue with, which policy to modify, to nuance, to change. But as I said, we cannot remain static and stuck on one position while the overall environment has changed.
Okay, so Mr. Prasad, from your point of view, the way you've seen this entire thing unfolding, and as Mr. Raghavan and General Sivach is pointing out, obviously the response cannot be static, it needs to be dynamic, but we need to continue to push Pakistan and push the international community as well to ensure that they try and make Pakistan take action.
I think that comes out very clearly, because time and again India, through its diplomats, through other means and at every possible fora, keeps reminding the world about the role Pakistan and terrorists operating from their soil have created havoc in India. Mumbai, of course, was a multinational. I mean, many countries' citizens lost their lives. So it's not just India alone that got affected. There are many others whose citizens lost their lives. So everybody wants justice out of it. So that is not lost. And by India constantly putting that pressure on, allows you to keep the focus. That in itself is a achievement of, if you look at it, because earlier even that was not forthcoming. If you really look at it, that you could get Hafiz Saeed to where he is today. So that shows all these factors, and FATF moved in that direction. And as I said, we'll have to wait till Friday as to what the task force reports are presented and what views it takes. So if you can just say draw a parallel, probably if you go to the ICJ where the Kulbhushan Jadhav case was taken up, you see, again it was the diplomatic and the India's high battle that made the verdict possible. So I think these are issues that we need to look at also dispassionately, because obviously when the public opinion builds, a lot of passions get, but as Ambassador Raghavan put, they operate in a geopolitical sphere, changing dynamics. You have to keep adapting.
Okay, keep adapting. Final comments from you, General Sibachu.
Vishal, absolutely, there is no doubt Pakistan is going to remain in a grey list, and that also we have to press on. My fact is that if it remain in grey list, it's a victory. Remember that just to downgrade or to avoid downgraded to blacklist, it requires 3 countries. But to upgrade from grey to a white list, it requires 14 to 15 countries. So therefore, this out of 39 countries, 36 countries can vote. You have to impress them and you have to tell them ki what is the true color of Pakistan. So the point is the politics plays a major role. So internationally, diplomatically convey to these 36 countries that what is Pakistan up to, and make sure they vote against him and keep him in the grey list. Because in case if he gets the support of 14 to 15 countries, it can wriggle out of even grey list. That is very important. Why you have to diplomatically isolate it, and your own diplomats have to ensure that the true color of Pakistan, involvement in money laundering and terrorist funding is shown. Because the fact is that Pakistan has failed to act, especially against those terrorists which are operating against India. Lashkar-e-Toba, its front organization Jamaat-e-ul-Dawa, Fly Insaniyat Foundation are collecting funds now also from POK and also from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and so is the other groups. So it is important for India to keep that pressure on, at least tell the 36 countries that Pakistan deserves not to come out of grey list, because if in case it gets a support of 15 countries, then he can even wriggle out of it. So, fact he remains in a grey list will be a victory of Indian diplomacy, and for that you have to keep the pressure on.
Okay, keep the pressure on. Thank you so much, gentlemen. As our panelists have pointed out, India, as all of us know, has done well diplomatically to try and isolate Pakistan on the international fora and expose its links to terror funding. But as our panelists are saying, the geopolitical equations, changes in those geopolitical equations might give a bit of a breather to Pakistan. But here, India needs to act once again swiftly and keep the pressure on, not only on Pakistan, but also on the international community.